What's up, guys? I'm actually driving to one of my properties where I'm doing a renovation and just checking on the status of that. And what I wanted to do is just make this a quick Q&A where I've compiled a bunch of questions you guys have asked me over the last 3 to 4 weeks. And I figured I'd just sit here, chat with you guys, answer those questions. So let's get right into it. Let's see. The first one is, hang on. Is Airbnb saturated? All right, so this is a great question and kind of feeds into the whole is Airbnb dead conversation that you'll see people on YouTube maybe suggesting. So Airbnb has definitely changed, but just like with any business, as time goes on, the people that are actually competing and taking it seriously and professionally, those individuals are the ones that are actually going to succeed and adjust with the market. So what you need to do now is focus on creating a stellar experience, like a really top-notch experience through the amenities that you have, through the experience that you create, and the quality of your Airbnb. And when you do that, Airbnb absolutely is still alive and a great opportunity for you to get into. And that's whether you want to do Airbnb arbitrage, rent to rent, co-hosting, co-listing, which is property management, or if you want the full advantage of owning property is owning an Airbnb because of the tremendous tax advantages. So maybe I'll get into that in a little bit once I get to the other questions. But one of the biggest, most beneficial areas of having an Airbnb is what's called the short-term rental loophole. And that way you can deduct and save a significant amount on your taxes by accelerating depreciation and even bonus depreciation. So you'd have to work on that with your CPA, but nonetheless, everyone should be taking advantage of that and saving tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on their tax bill. All right, next question. Should I start with arbitrage? Arbitrage, rental arbitrage, for those of you that don't know, is when someone rents a property on a long-term basis and then you sublease that property on platforms such as Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. And that's a phenomenal way to start your Airbnb journey and build up cash flow, right? So while you won't have the tax advantages, you'll still have the cash flow advantages when you're finding the right properties that are performing well, and when you follow a simple process of optimizing your property against your whole market, which is something that is one of the biggest keys that I teach anyone that I work with in my program. We focus on the market research and the property research so that you can find the right properties for Airbnb arbitrage and make it a success. Again, it all comes down to selecting the right properties. And it's something you can quickly scale out, okay? One thing that I do offer when I work with people one-on-one is they get my landlord scripts, they get all the furniture lists, they get basically every single thing that my operation runs on, and how to secure those listings, how to find the properties, how to talk to the landlord, get their permission to do this all in a compliant way. And arbitrage is a great way for you to start in Airbnb. All right, next question. What are the startup costs for arbitrage? Okay, great question. So typically when you're starting out, you need, now by the way, all of this is negotiable. Very important, all of this is negotiable. But when you find the property, typically you need security deposit. It's just like if you were going to go rent out a property. You need that security deposit. If the property is unfurnished, you have to go get the furniture. If it is furnished, you get to save that expense, which is about $10,000 to $12,000 if you're furnishing a single family property, 3 to 4 bedrooms. You're looking at about $10,000 to $12,000 on average. And a way that you can bypass that is, of course, finding properties that are furnished and focusing your efforts and your budget on optimizing it and making the furniture really, really nice, or adding amenities. And that way the basics are already handled. So that's something that I've been able to do. I've also helped my students do, is finding those properties that actually already come furnished and you optimize and get nice accent pieces and really stand out from your competition. So security deposit, sometimes first month's rent. In many cases, I've done this again and also have shown my students how to negotiate it, but there's ways that you can negotiate getting free rent up front so that you don't need to pay that first month's rent. You also don't need to necessarily pay a security deposit if you know how to negotiate with the landlord, okay? So these are all things that you can do, but those are generally the startup costs. You also have your LLC, which is a couple $100 to set up your business entity. Beyond that, that's essentially all of your startup costs. Oh, and your photography, right? A couple $100 for photography, right? Next question. I like these. What if I fail? Let me share a little bit about my background with failing in business, okay? I've tried so many different businesses. Failure is a part of your journey as an entrepreneur. The reason you're looking at this video, the reason I even got into Airbnb is because you wanted to build a business to have more freedom, okay? You want more freedom. So what you're currently in, or whatever situation you're currently in, is not enough for you in the life that you want to live. So failure is going to be part of that. Failure is just part of life. It's you accumulating those failures is actually you accumulating lessons and learning and building upon them and actually succeeding when you've actually found the right opportunity. So I had done e-com, I've been doing businesses online, all sorts of things that you can imagine, and many of them didn't work. But what I was able to do is build upon those, and once I found opportunity with Airbnb and had a mentor, everything clicked, and that was my actual success when it came to business on a big level. And my first property, it was $12,500, about $12,200 or $12,500 that I earned in the very first month. I remember it specifically. First booking, and this was all in the same month that I got the property. I got a $3,400 booking, I got a $1,600 booking, and it was a $7,200 booking, all in the first month. And that was completely life-changing for me. Not just the money, but it was the, oh my God, this works, on top of having a job, right? And that's another great thing. You can start, and most people start their Airbnb business while they already have another job or other businesses going on. And it's completely something that you can do incrementally and start out putting time in and building up to the point where you have that additional freedom or additional income, whether it's $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month. How could that change everything going on in your business, for your family, for yourself, to earn another $5,000 a month even from a single property? That's a rent, that's a mortgage, that's a car payment, that's a vacation. Basically, it gives you more freedom, right? So failure, going back to the question, failure is a part of the journey of getting to where you want to go. You just can never quit. That's the key. I've failed many, many times, and I continue to build upon my failures and continue to succeed because I never quit, and you can never quit. It's all in how you think about it. So, yes, failure can happen, but the way you mitigate failure in Airbnb is focusing on your market research, focusing on staying in the right investment, in the right property. People fail in Airbnb by choosing the wrong property and not doing enough research. So that's the biggest thing we focus on when I work with my students one-on-one. That is probably the biggest aspect of it, is making sure we get the right property. You don't want to jump the gun and jump into a property that isn't ideal. That's when most people make those mistakes and get into the wrong properties and end up not succeeding. But when you do Airbnb the right way and you focus on your market research, meaning what areas are best for you, your market research meaning which city or town or wherever it is that you're looking to do Airbnb, is that in a place that the numbers check out and Airbnb is a good investment in that particular area. That's the most important thing. And then once you do that, then you need to find and narrow down on the property within that market and make sure it's a winning property or make it into a winning property. Okay, so there's a methodology to doing this, right? So anyway, I think I might have gone on all sorts of tangents with this failure question, but that's the way you mitigate failure in Airbnb. But more about that question in general, you can never let the fear of failure stop you, because where you are right now already is not where you want to be. So you have nothing to lose by stepping into the unknown and doing a new business or trying a new opportunity or taking the risk on any investment, whether it's Airbnb or any other business. That's the only way you're going to make it to the next level. So that's the most important piece of failure. Failure is part of life. You just can't stop at failure. You have to keep going until you succeed. You have to adjust the sails. You have to adapt. You have to make sure you're adapting and never quitting. And having a mentor is huge. I've spent tens and tens of thousands of dollars on mentorship and making sure that I have the right information from people that have succeeded before me and they've already got the answers. That's the biggest shortcut. And that saved me not only tons of money by doing that, it saved me a tremendous amount of time, which is more valuable than money. So that's what I would recommend to you. Okay, I know I beat that question to death. Let's get to the next question. Okay, what do we have next? What is the biggest mistake new hosts make? Okay, that pretty much goes into, I talked a little bit about that. The biggest mistake new hosts make, or anyone aspiring to get into Airbnb, is they get into the wrong property. That's easily the easiest one if you're not doing it right and you're not doing your research properly. So that's the most important thing, again, is your market research, using tools like AirDNA, knowing how to use the tool, because you have to filter out the data that doesn't really help you and stick to the data that is beneficial to you. That's one of the most important things. So that'll help you narrow down a location. Next, you have to narrow down a property and understand what are the characteristics of a winning property in 2025. Very important. Amenities and experiences are everything in 2025. So you have to make sure that your property either comes with really nice amenities that are not in your market, and this comes down to your market research. You want to stand out from the rest. And that way you can charge top dollar because no one can compete with you. If you have a pickleball court and no one else has a pickleball court, well, guess what? You've just created a moat around your business. Even just from one property, you're going to be booked, especially for people that love pickleball. Just an example, right? So you really have to study your market. And again, one of the things that I make sure that I do before I go into an investment is run the numbers the right way and work with my students to run the numbers the right way, use all the tools that we have to make sure that we're looking at every single possible expense, every single data point using AirDNA or Airbnb, and looking at all the competition and how to enter the market and be competitive and actually beat the competition. It's all about your market research and positioning yourself well. So that's in a nutshell how you, those are the biggest mistakes. What else? That would be the biggest mistake that new hosts make, I would say. Next. What are the best markets to be in? Okay, this is a question that I see from a lot of people that I've gotten this question many times. It's not so much about the best market because that can vary. Usually you want to find properties that are near metropolitan areas or that have a lot of vacationers that travel to them. And you still have to run the numbers because there could be saturation there. You want to find a place that either is not as competitive or position yourself in the market, any market, where there is a demand, right? There is a demand, and ideally less of a supply. So high demand, it's all supply and demand, right? And that's why you get amenities that stick out. It's all supply and demand. If there's scarcity with the amenities or property that you have, and there's a high demand for people traveling to that city, town, or area with different attractions to it, I guess I'll give you that. an important piece is any city where people go there often for certain things, certain events, certain attractions, those are typically good places. But again, there is no city that is better than all other cities. That's going to come down to the research that you do. And you can find markets that you could have never thought of even existed. You didn't even know existed when you know the market research methods. Okay? I've seen people go into markets that are really hot and do terribly because they didn't position their property correctly. And I've seen people go into markets where I didn't even know this town existed, and they are killing it. They're just crushing it. So that comes down to your market research. I would get out of the mentality of this city is better than all other cities, because guess what? The moment you identify a city like that, everyone's gonna flood to it and it's no longer gonna be a good city anymore, or town. So you have to think, you have to think that way. Where is the opportunity based on the data, and is it somewhere I can enter the market and stand out? That's how you need to think about it. There is no best market or worst market. Typically, just you have to look at supply and demand, look at all the data, look at all the numbers, and see how you can stand out. Okay. We'll do, let's see, what else do we have? Do I need to start in my own town? Okay, great question. You do not need to start. That's one of the, I guess, the advantages of Airbnb and investing and doing Airbnb is you do not need to start wherever it is that you live. You can run your Airbnb business and operation completely remotely, totally remote. Okay? If you happen to be near a place where you've done the research and it's either in your city or your town or a couple hour drive and the numbers are good and you've done your analysis, then absolutely start there. Get your hands dirty with a property that's nearby, but it's absolutely not needed. You can start, I've had properties in different states. You can have properties in different countries because the framework is the same. Airbnb is the same. Once you set up your property, your systems, your automation, the framework of identifying and finding properties, you can run that play anywhere and run it remotely. You can be anywhere you want once you set up your properties, and even set up your properties remotely and run your whole operation and scale it out without being in the city or town. So no, short answer, you do not need to start your Airbnb business in the city or the town that you're in. You want to follow the numbers. You always want to follow the data and the numbers. And that's how you're going to make the most money. You want to find the numbers that make sense, find the markets that make sense, and build and scale out your business from there. All right, let's see what else we have. Okay. Should I focus on quantity or quality? I love this question. Anyone that's worked with me knows that what I am a huge advocate for is quality over quantity. Now, what do I mean? Back in my case, before I got into Airbnb, I did not know you could generate a certain amount of income from one property. I was more so thinking of longer term rentals, and my mentor at the time basically showed me one property he was making $26K a month. Really nice backyard, a lot of amenities, but that blew my mind. I honestly didn't even believe him at first, and then he pulled out his app and he showed me, and that completely changed the way how I looked at real estate. I went all in on Airbnb, and since then the rest is history. And that's how I generated my 12,000 and some change in my first month, is he helped me find that property, by the way. So quality over quantity. I'm not a fan of go get 10 different units and they're each making a couple $100 a month. Why would you do that? The work it takes to do, so many different properties that aren't generating as much cash flow, you can replace with getting a higher quality property and earn even more than that just in one property. Okay, so that is absolutely what I recommend. Focusing on quality over quantity. You want one property that can make what 3 mediocre properties are going to make you, because that's going to be a third of the work for you, a third of the operations, a third of the everything. You just have to put, again, the right amount of market research into the property search that you're doing, and then you can find these areas that are gold mines, and that's exactly how you focus on quality over quantity in your Airbnb search. Okay? So, great question. I think I'm gonna wrap up on that question, guys. I'm almost getting to where I'm heading here. So I'm gonna leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for tuning in. I hope this was very helpful for you, especially if you're starting out and looking to get into Airbnb. So for those of you that are interested in learning how to start your Airbnb business, you can click one of my free course videos where I teach you A to Z how to start. And then for those of you that are more serious and want some one-on-one guidance, I have a mentorship program where I work with you one-on-one. I only work with a handful of students every month. You can click the link in the description, apply to see if you qualify to work with me. And if that's what you're looking to do, I'd love to see if it's a good fit and work with you and help you build out your business. So for the rest of you, be great, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll catch you in the next one.